Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal 2. The rematch takes place in the main event of UFC 261, Usman versus Masvidal 2. And I love this matchup. I know this is not the matchup people wanted to see for the welterweight belt, and it's not the matchup I wanted to see either for the welterweight belt. I really want to see Usman versus Covington 2 because I feel like that's the only one that is going to be in any way competitive whatsoever. But Usman is taking on Masvidal again because Masvidal earned his title shot by losing nearly every round to Usman the first time, but he did step in on short notice. So in my opinion, the reason why the UFC is giving Masvidal this fight is pretty obvious. He saved the event at Fight Island. Without Masvidal, they would have had no big main event at Fight Island, and it would have been Holloway versus Volkanovski 2, and it just wouldn't have been as big of an event as it was. Gilbert had to pull out with the Rona syndrome last time. He was supposed to fight Usman before they fought each other at UFC 258. Eventually, Masvidal steps in and saves the day. Thank you very much, Jorge Masvidal, for saving that event. I just really wish that Masvidal would have had to go through a couple of contenders first before rematching Usman, because that's what happened with Robert Whittaker. He lost to Israel Adesanya the first time. He's now beat a bunch of contenders in the middleweight division, and now there's like a reignited argument that, oh wait, Whittaker's got a really good chance against Israel Adesanya. Look what he showed in these last few fights that he's developed. Usman and Masvidal happened. Masvidal has done nothing since then but hang around with Jake Paul, and now he's going to come back and beat Usman. I know there's now the argument of a full camp. I'll say this right back to you. There isn't a full camp. He's had 5 weeks. So there's not even a full camp. Are we going to have a trilogy after this one to say, oh, what if Masvidal has 7 weeks of camp? Can he beat Usman then? And I know a lot of people, again, are mentioning this whole thing about the full camp going to change things for Jorge Masvidal. Fair play, maybe cardio-wise. He'll do a little bit better in those early rounds and be able to keep a little bit of pace longer in the early part of this fight. But I do believe that Usman's going to be able to drown him against the cage anyway, because even against Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal was visibly slowing down in that fight. I'm not saying that without the stoppage, Nate Diaz would have came back in the 4th and 5th, but I think those 4th and 5th rounds would have been the closest rounds of the fight 100%. Masvidal does slow down as these fights go on. And he is a bit of a power swinger as well. Even though he doesn't really get one-shot big KOs, he has a flying knee KO in his career. He does have a KO over Darren Till, but he's not one of these guys where if it lands, you're going out cold. He doesn't have the touch of death in his hands, as people like to call it. But I don't see that Masvidal's going to win this one as the fight goes on. I think Usman's really going to control him in the later rounds, and people were talking about Masvidal getting a chance to have a full camp against Usman. Usman now has a chance to have a full camp against Jorge Masvidal. I think Usman's going to win. And I think he's going to win more dominantly, but also less dominantly in the same way. I do believe that Masvidal's going to go out there and secure the first round against Kamaru Usman. But now, Usman has a full camp to prepare for Masvidal. And I think that's going to really come into effect in his wrestling. And I think last time Masvidal fought Usman, he got gifted a golden opportunity that we didn't even realize until UFC 258 happened not too long ago, where Usman fought Gilbert Burns. We didn't know back then, but Usman's game plan against Gilbert Burns was not to grapple whatsoever. He wanted nothing to do with the grappling of Gilbert Burns at all. He avoided it like the plague. Gilbert Burns was literally laying on his back in the first round with his hands behind his head, saying, come on, come to the ground with me, see what you can do. Usman did not want anything to do with the grappling of Gilbert Burns, and why would he? It's Gilbert Burns. He's an absolute phenom in jiu-jitsu. But knowing that now, I think I can apply some knowledge here. Usman was probably training against Burns the first time that they fought exactly the same way as he trained to fight Burns at UFC 258. He probably wasn't going to do any grappling and just wanted to stand and fight with Gilbert Burns in the main event of that card all the way back when they were supposed to fight each other the first time. Knowing that, Masvidal had a chance to fight Usman without really fighting an Usman who was training grappling full force. Now he's got an Usman who's going to be training to grapple Jorge Masvidal against a cage and on the canvas. And I think Usman's grappling is going to be the massive decider here, of course, but I think it's going to be more impressive than it was in the original Jorge Masvidal fight, because now Usman knows he's fighting Jorge Masvidal, and he's going to structure his entire camp around grappling with Jorge Masvidal, because there's no way he's going to stand up with Jorge Masvidal. I know a lot of people have seen the Gilbert Burns fight and have seen the Colby Covington fight and are now thinking to themselves, Usman's not this boring guy that holds people against the cage and foot stomps them anymore. That's because Colby and Burns have a level of grappling that Usman respects so much that he wanted to avoid altogether. Now, fair play, Usman maybe could have gone out there and out-grappled Gilbert Burns. Maybe, just with his size. Maybe he could have out-wrestled Colby Covington as well. We don't know that. But Usman also does not know that. But one thing that Usman did know is that he could go out there and outstrike both of them. I think now that he's got a striker in Masvidal, who obviously has better striking than Kamaru Usman, Usman's going to go out there and push him against the cage, stamp on his toes, land those body shots that he does, and I just don't see Masvidal winning this one. I do see Masvidal maybe securing the first round and maybe making the second round really close as well, but other than that, I just don't see him winning whatsoever, because as much as his name is Jorge Masvidal, and he is game bred, and he grew up on the streets of Miami, okay? He's 35-14, and that is really... I said this about Daniel Rodriguez and Mike Perry not too long ago. I know Mike Perry was a big name, but D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, might as well be 15-0, but he's right now 13-2, but he's lost 2 split decisions that he shouldn't have even lost. You just kind of got to look at things past the name value of the fighters sometimes. This is an 18-1 dominant grappling world champion in the welterweight division that's maybe the biggest welterweight out there right now, other than maybe a few of them, but definitely much bigger than Jorge Masvidal, much more athletic than Jorge Masvidal. He's got a reach advantage over Masvidal. He's taller than Masvidal as well. He's even a little bit thicker than Masvidal, even whilst being taller and having the reach advantage. And Masvidal's 35-14, and he just lost, and he's 36 years of age. You know? And he's looking chubby. And I know I can't talk. I'm very, very aware of this information. Okay, I cannot mention anything about this, but I will, and I will speak of this from a place of expertise. Okay, Jorge Masvidal recently, and maybe this is just a game plan when he's going up against matchups like Usman and good grapplers. He wants to carry a little bit more body weight on him. Who knows? A little bit less muscle mass, a little bit more fat, so he can go a little bit longer with the cardio and not exert himself so much in the early rounds. But Jorge Masvidal, he used to be in really good shape when he originally moved up into the welterweight division. Now he's like a little bit chubby. He's got some love handles on him. He's got some flab under his arm that he never used to have before. He's eating burgers on the build up to the fight. I don't trust Masvidal to go out there and get it done. He could go out there and land that big shot in the first round. We know he can do that. But that's not enough for me to base an entire prediction of a fight on. At all. Oh, Masvidal, this time he'll land that big shot. Yeah, but 99 out of 100 times, Usman does this. So, I've got to go with Usman here. I like Masvidal. There's a part of me that kind of wants him to win just so we don't have Kamaru Usman as champion, because I need views on my videos, and Usman defending against a normal contender just does not bring that to me whatsoever, because no one gives a fuck about Usman at all. But honestly, since Masvidal's been pulling all this crazy shit, hanging around with Jake Paul, doing all this weird corny stuff as well, I feel like I'm kind of not rooting for Jorge Masvidal to go out there and get the belt, because I know that if he does, we could see some fucking dumb UFC welterweight championship defended against Jake Paul, or Jorge Masvidal has chosen this random guy, Nate Diaz, coming off a loss to Leon Edwards. That's the guy I want, says Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal wants Conor McGregor coming off a loss to Dustin Poirier in the trilogy. I can already see the headlines if Masvidal becomes champion on basically everyone's name being called out other than top contenders like Colby Covington. That's the only fight I wanted to see at welterweight. Covington versus Usman 2. This rematch means absolutely nothing to me. Masvidal was training as hard as he could for the first fight as well. Dustin Poirier revealed that to us. I don't know what else to say. There is going to be an advantage for Masvidal, knowing that Usman's the guy he's going to be taking on, because, of course, he was training to fill in on short notice. He did have a training camp, but he didn't know who he was training for. It was going to be Usman or Gilbert Burns. One of them may pull out and he'll step in and save the day, but he didn't really know specifically who he was training for. So there is going to be a different level of focus and fine details in the training camp of Jorge Masvidal that he maybe did not have before, but Masvidal was in shape before. I don't think there's going to be a huge difference in terms of his cardio, but there will be a slight difference in my opinion in terms of his cardio. Maybe he'll do okay in the earlier rounds, but as these rounds go on, I can see Usman maybe getting some 10-8 rounds. 10-8 rounds are very easy to get nowadays. If you look at the Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya fight, 10-8 rounds are being given out quite often, and I think there's a very good chance that Usman's going to get some of those 10-8 rounds in rounds 4 and 5 of this bout, and I think everyone's going to be complaining about Usman's style after this one. And that's what it's going to be. But Usman's going to win. And his stand-up's massively improved. That's something I need to mention as well. Usman has the things to improve here. Masvidal is 36 years of age. He has lost so many times. And I don't think he's going to be making groundbreaking changes to his game where now he can out-grapple the guy he couldn't out-grapple before. Now he can do this that he couldn't do before. I feel like Usman is still a work in progress, which is crazy to say because he's a world champion, but that's how good the sport is nowadays. Like, Usman is still developing as a world champion and getting better in certain aspects of his game, especially his stand-up. I don't know if there's much he can do to improve his wrestling, but either way, he's improving his stand-up as a champion, and Masvidal, in my opinion, right now in his career, is just maintaining. You can't tell me that after a million dollar payday, Masvidal's going to be more focused than he was before. I don't see that happening. Also, something I want to mention as well, just to get down to some fine details that could sway you even more. Masvidal made a comment, I believe in February, after Usman beat Gilbert Burns. He said, I'll be ready in October or September, someone's getting baptized, and Usman calls him out for April. Now, I'm just saying this, Masvidal himself said he was going to be ready to baptize someone September, October, August, towards the second half of this year. I don't want to make any conspiracy theories here, but maybe there was a reason why he put his made his deadline so much further back this year. Maybe he was injured, maybe he wanted to recover from something, maybe he wanted to get back into the swing of things and really focus himself for a long period of time back in the training room. I don't like all of these hints that I'm getting. I feel like this is when Justin Gaethje said, I don't like grappling because I gas out, and now he's taking on Khabib. There are a lot of key things that people say sometimes that you've got to take into consideration. But one thing that's the massive difference in this bout is maybe Usman's going to be a little bit more defensively aware in the stand-up department. He looked like he'd improved his stand-up. His jab was a lot better against Gilbert Burns than we've seen it before. Maybe that's going to help him here hide behind his jab because he's got a ridiculously long reach for the welterweight division, 76 inches of reach. I think he's going to use that to hide behind his jab, not really take too many big shots from Jorge Masvidal, shoot the takedowns when he needs to, and just push Masvidal against the cage if he can't get a takedown. And when they're against the cage, the only difference was, and it wasn't a technique thing, okay, because Masvidal knows what he needs to do. He needs to go to over-unders, get double unders, get his hands together, turn Usman against the cage and separate and break. Or do something with the head and push off to the side, whatever he needs to do. That's a technique thing. Masvidal knew he had to do that in the first fight with Usman. The reason why he couldn't do that, Usman was too strong. Usman was too strong for him against the cage. He could not move off Usman. All the techniques he had learned through the decades that he's been in this game, he had them in his mind. He could not implement them against Usman because Usman is too strong against the cage. You're telling me now Masvidal's going to be stronger than Usman and strong enough to turn Usman around in those positions when Usman's the younger guy who's the more improving guy and Masvidal's the 36-year-old that's getting more and more fat every single time we see him. There is a chance that Masvidal makes magic happen and he lands that big shot. I don't play those games here. We ain't going off that one chance that someone lands a big shot. I'm making predictions that are educated here, and I think Usman's going to get it done against Jorge Masvidal. And if he does get it done against Jorge Masvidal, the Guru will be on a 3-fight main event streak. Whittaker destroys Gastelum, as I fucking said. Vettori destroys Holland with his grappling, as I fucking said. Now it's time for Usman to settle things back to normalcy and establish Guru as the greatest predictor of all time. I'm joking, but even still, Usman's going to win. I think he'll win some 10-8 rounds in the later ones. And I can see this being a scorecard of, let me think here, 49. But what can it be? I'll say 49-45. I think Masvidal's going to sneak the first, but Usman's going to get a 10-8 anyway. And that's going to take away that first round point for Masvidal and make it 49-40. No, I'll say 2 10-8 rounds. I'll say 2 10-8 rounds. I'll say Usman 49-44. If that's how it works. I don't even know. 49-44 Usman is my final prediction. He'll win a decision. I know a lot of people are saying that he's going to finish Masvidal this time, but Masvidal ain't getting finished by Usman, okay? There's other guys that have tried to finish Masvidal. One guy caught him in an inverted triangle at one point way ages ago in his career. Another guy dropped him badly, but he was absolutely fine, but the referee called it off early anyway. Hasn't officially been finished in that way. I don't see Usman submitting him because Masvidal has got really good defensive jiu-jitsu. And style-wise, he's actually a tough matchup for Usman. It's just he's 36, he's 35-14, and he's getting fat as well. And he looks like he's a little bit unmotivated. And he's eating burgers 2 weeks out from the fight at McDonald's. Is that what's going to be the next excuse? The whole argument for them making this rematch was that now Masvidal's going to have a full camp to take on Kamaru Usman. And he got 5 weeks. Whatever. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Please, for the love of fucking God, Colby Covington, if you are out there, I beg of you, the chaotic one, I beg of you, you're the only guy who can do anything to Usman, and even Usman fans that hate you will admit that themselves. You are the only man that can even hang with Usman in this welterweight division. Please, Covington, stay ready. If anyone falls out of this, you need to be there. If anyone falls out of Burns versus Wonderboy, you need to be there. If anyone falls out of Edwards versus Diaz, you need to be there. Covington, stay fucking ready. Fill in for any of these matchups. When you win against whoever you get put against, I want to see the rematch between you and Kamaru Usman, because the first fight was fucking legendary and you might have been winning leading up to that 5th round. Colby, stay ready. Usman beat Masvidal and we'll hopefully have this rematch down the line. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Goodbye and toodle pip.